It is time now for the Ask the Mayor program here on your hometown news station, AM 1300 KGLO. And, well, we're into 2026, and that means we have a new mayor of Mason City joining us. And John Lee is in studio and talking about the city of Mason City. And we welcome you here to the studios of KGLO.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me here, Bob. And it's one since the swearing in December, like everything's like this formal, like my first, and obviously as the mayor's first time. Now it's official. Now I feel like the mayor since I'm sitting across from you. Ask the Mayor program.
Well, talk about a little bit about being elected as mayor and why you decided to run for the mayor's position, and have your first few days in office been?
I think it's probably when I first ran back in 2011 city council, mayor was never on my agenda. I no way did I want to even remotely get there. But as you progress and go through 12 or 14 years and you watch Eric Buckmeyer and Bill Schickel, and you become really passionate about what we're going in the direction we're heading. And, Bill and I have talked many, many times, not about being mayor, but just coffee once every 2 months. And it kind of started creeping in at some point, and probably a couple of weeks before he announced, or maybe it was a week before he announced, he called me and goes, "Hey, heads up, I'm not going to run again." And all of us thought he was going to run again. So I had a week.
And actually, he had said down, and we were doing this at my previous employer in the interim time, and he had said he was going to run for mayor. Then all of a sudden,
and so he gave me a heads up, and I was like, "Oh," I was shocked. And he goes, "If you're still interested," and I said, "Well, now I really think about it." And obviously I chose that's the right path for me and my family. And I obviously thought I could help the city and continue on the path we were on. And so since November 5th, so to speak, after the election, I've been trying to meet with everybody I can, any stakeholder, partner, sponsor that we've had, and get to know each other on a different level, different perspective, and what my goals are going to be. And now we just keep pushing. Now we get rolling.
Let's go some further back. Let's go back, 14 years when you first decided to run for city government. Maybe just talk about why you wanted to be involved in city government at the council level.
I'm going to go to the late, great John Skipper.
Okay.
One of my first talks with him when he asked me that question, we talked a little bit about it. I'll go back to that conversation, but it was like a year, 6 months in, a year in, whatever it was. I remember he goes, I feel like you're Mr. Smith. Mr. Lee goes to the council. And I go, that might be one of the greatest compliments I've ever received, John, because I love Jimmy Stewart and all that. But actually, I give credit to, and we'll see what people say, and we'll let it go out in the airways for sure, but kind of Max Weaver. Probably not the reason a lot of people are thinking about, that might have been part of it.
Right.
But there was a conference. One of my fellow teachers was on a committee downtown. I had not been involved in city politics at all, how to work, but I taught government. And my name came up in a meeting somehow, and this teacher said, "Well, John said this about local government." And Max simply, and it wasn't disrespectful, just said, "He may teach government, doesn't mean he knows government." And she came back and told me that. And truthfully, I was like, he's right. He's right. If I want to teach this better, I should get involved. So I got involved in 2 or 3 different committees. I was involved in a couple of committees. And then I saw kind of Eric Buckmeyer and if you remember, we had 2 years of a 3-3 vote continually. And we were very divided. And I even actually tried to do a petition to make it 7. I don't know if you remember that or not. I was like, well, we should just add 1. That way we don't have 3-3 votes. Well, I found out that was a huge lift, and it wasn't as easy as just let's add 1. And so I learned right there, and I said, well, if I can't add 1, maybe I'll try to get involved. My wife said, I was complaining about our local government like everybody else. And God bless her. She said, either stop complaining or run. I said, well, I'll show you. I'm going to run and get beat, and then I can really complain. And I won, and I won it. Obviously, I didn't run just to do that, but that's kind of how the story came about. I was challenged to know government better. I didn't want to be one of those teachers that people said, I don't even know, what's the expression? Those who can't teach, right? Whatever it is. I'm like, oh, no. I want to be able to be, if I'm up in front of the class, I want to be able to tell kids I know what I'm talking about. That's kind of how it all started.
You talked about the 3-3 votes, which there was a lot of gridlock in city government at that time. Maybe just talk about, I don't know if evolution is the right word to use with talking about this necessarily, but how things have progressed maybe is a better word, since those 3-3 deadlock days to now, where the council is not always in total agreement, but there's a lot more agreement on the council, I guess.
For sure. We don't. I don't know how many things have come to the table and haven't passed. There's been a one or two in the last year or so. But when Alex Kuhn, former Mayor Gene Marinos, and I were first elected in 2011, started in 2012. It was now a council of 6 people and overseen kind of by Eric Bookmeyer as mayor. And if you remember, he ran on, I don't remember the 3 Ds, but decency and decorum were 2 of them that we really worked on. And I even mentioned it last night. It was a subtle nod to him, if you caught that listen, decency and decorum is vital for a town. And we have to do that. So there are times at the council table the last 14 years where I might have disagreed with something, but that all happened kind of off the television in the mayor's office or in city administrator's office, where we really debate and say what's right or wrong. Because I learned that we have to be pulling from the same rope. Even if you disagree, you can do it cordially. We can do it agreeably, respectfully. And you're not out there trying to convince everybody they're wrong and convince the city to support you. It is, this is what I think, this is what I believe, here's my vote, and we end it. And that goes a long ways. And I believe wholeheartedly in that approach. And I think it's paid dividends in Mason City. And everybody who kind of comes on since has kind of just picked that up.
Well, let's look back. Of course, it's right in Mason City Code that the mayor must give a report each and every year at the beginning of the year, the State of the City report, to talk about his thoughts on the status of Mason City. And you said you wanted to do something a little bit different for your first State of the City speech, and not necessarily look at the last 12 months or what needs to be done in the near future. You wanted to look back at those 14 years you've been on the council.
Yeah. It was within a day or two. I think it was Paul Adams who texted me and said, "Congratulations, Mr. Mayor. Now you have a State of the City to get ready to." It was the first time I was like, yes, that is. So it sat in my for 2 months, took it very seriously. And I was trying to go through my thoughts, and I actually went back and watched, I think, 2 with Eric Bookmeyer and about 3 or 4 that I watched with Bill Schickel. And there's a formula to it. And I'm like, I see it. Maybe that's what I should do. But in that process, I just kind of went back. God, look how far we've come in 14 years. And I wanted to remind everybody what we have accomplished as a city in 14 years. It really is spectacular, if you ask me. And so I want to remind everybody kind of what got us there, but it really wasn't the city council. It wasn't really, and it's not a knock on city council, because I'd be knocking myself, or Bill Schickel or Eric Bookmeyer. But we have great partners in this town, and it's because of them. And we got to expand that bench is kind of my reoccurring theme last night. And so that's what I wanted to do. As a history teacher, I wanted to look at the 14, but I also want to look at the next 15 years, 14 years. Not saying I'm running for mayor for 14 years. That's not the point. But let's not think about just 12. We got to think, how do we grow this town even bigger and better, and think of next generation. I do believe in that. I believe that we sacrifice a little bit today, maybe for the good for tomorrow, and you start that mindset.
You talk about the partnerships, and during your speech last night, one of the ones you talked about was the Park and Hotel. That was a partnership. There have been several other partnerships with the bike trails and the bike park, and it's those type of partnerships you get some community buy-in to as well, to get those projects done.
Yeah, it's vital to a city. If everybody just relied on the 6 city councilmen and the mayor and staff and city administrator and the crews to do the work, a city will fail. A city will start, it's just too big, too difficult. You can't do the big projects, the projects that attract people. You can't do the projects that make people feel really great about being in town. The city has to keep, I mentioned last night, clean streets, clean water. We got to, make the fire department, the police department, and the crews. And that's really our job. And then we partner with everything else. And we need citizens and business to step up to really build community.
One of the, just going through your speech, different segments here, you talked about Mason City must find ways to expand social and economic opportunities in the community.
Yeah. I sit down every 3 weeks. We have a round table in my classes. I've done this for 8 or 10 years. And we just sit around, we talk about, they can ask me any questions about local or state government, because most of my semester, I teach obviously federal government. Right. So this is a way for me to look at city and state government. The kids can just ask any question they've heard in the news. And there's always one of those round tables. I just specifically talk about the city and what would make them want to stay, what makes them proud to be Mason City. And it always comes down to those two things. The kids want things to do and they want economic opportunities for themselves. And my job is to kind of teach them that there's more than they think, but how do we build? Well, if it's true for the students, it's true for all of us. And we all want more things to do and we all want more economic opportunities. And so I think that's the heart and soul of any community. And how do you build those things out?
As you mentioned, some of those kids, you try to keep them here, or they go to college and then they come back here. Some do, obviously some don't. uh, Population has been a buzzword in the city for a number of years. Of course, it was 30,000 back in 1980, and now we're down to 27,000 and some change as of the 2020
Yeah,
census. And I know there's people in the business community and the community in general wondering, what can we do to retain that population, or obviously expand it, because now we're seeing the effects of, well, we are getting rid of an elementary school,
right.
for one example. I mean, the class sizes are down, and it's just not economically efficient to run an elementary building like that.
Yeah, it's the problem that all rural America, and we are rural, are facing. I don't know the number. I'm going to throw a number out, but I'm willing to bet 85 to 90% of all municipalities in this country are probably dropping. It's the city centers that are growing, and so it's a problem everybody's facing. So how do we combat that? And what you do is try to build the best, city you can, strong community. People want to live in strong communities, safe communities, and one that's vibrant and that people live together. I'm going to give you an example. I was over Christmas break. I was at coffee and I was with a table of 4 or 5 people, and 2 of my former students walk in. They're back from 2 different colleges, and they were going to meet for coffee and whatever. They say, "Mr. Lee," we get talking right by the table, and I did what I do, and I said, "What are you majoring?" They said they're 2 majors. I said, "Oh, good. You can both come back here and get jobs." One instantly says, "Well, I'm really thinking about it. I think I'm going to move back." The other one says, "If I can find the right job, I'd move back."
Oh,
Fantastic.
yeah.
But at the table, one of the people I was with was like, "Oh, why do you want to do that?" I ignored him. I kept talking to them, and they went on and got their coffee. And I pivoted and I said, "Why would you say that?" He goes, "Oh, I was just kidding." I go, "No." They hear that and like, "God, this town's so negative." That can trigger people's decisions. He goes, "Oh, I don't think so." I go, "Oh, I'm telling you, we should have said, well, my God, that would be great to have you 2 back. Welcome." And we as a community need to learn from that. It is what we have to do to grow this town. It's inevitable. We got to attract people from, keep people. We got to attract them from other countries. Last night we mentioned there's 3 or 4 pipelines, and they're not growing huge, but they are pipelines. We have some young professionals moving back. My 2 children moved to Kansas City, but they have both chosen to move home. They both have full-time jobs in town now. They just in the last month, and so I do think we can move that needle, but it's a lot of work.
Going back to the gentleman that you talked about with the comment, one of the specific things you talked about, civic pride and civic duty, are important for the city, and obviously pride would go into making that comment, or not having pride, I guess.
Right.
But that is something that I think obviously we both think that needs to improve.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Okay, I go back. I'm going to go back to Meredith Wilson in a way.
Yeah.
He nailed Mason City in one line to this day when he says, "We can stand touching noses for a week at a time and never see eye to eye."
Right.
That is a brilliant line. And I think he did nail Mason City. It's okay to be stubborn. It's okay to be critical, but you can do both of those things and still be proud of the town that we've built. And so I think it's the negative aspect that just needs to tweak. And I expect all of us to be the Pollyannas of Mason City? Not all the time, no. But I can give an example of somebody I know who visited, I met, and they were out for dinner. And they said they were in from out of town. And they asked the waitress, like, what are things to do? And the waitress basically said, "Why'd you guys visit here? There's nothing to do here." I'm like, "What are you doing?" Like, that's a simple thing. "Welcome to Mason City." Oh, my daughter was in the service industry in Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
She had a customer, regular kind of a customer, and she always talked about Mason City and how much she loved it. Like 2 weeks later, they were back in, and they said, "Maddie, we visited Mason City last weekend. We wanted to see the town you talked about." Like, She got somebody from Kansas City to drive 5 hours to visit Mason City, get gas, get dinner, drive around town, learn us about it, and drive back and say, wow, you're right. What a great town. It's not that hard. And it's something we can all learn to do better. And again, I recognize we have problems. We do have problems that we can address and face. Every city in this town of this country does. But we can work together and alleviate some of them, at least take pressure off while we celebrate the victories.
In your conclusion of your speech, you talked about expectations need to be higher now, not in words, but in actions, and that the city has built a strong foundation for the future.
Wholeheartedly. I didn't write anything last night that I don't think I did believe in, but I love the foundation we've built. But we got to look at the last 14 years as a foundation. That's what I kind of want to re-index. I wanted to say, hey, look what we've come. But now this is the foundation. This is what we build on. We celebrate what we've done like a engineer looks at a foundation and says, now let's get to work. And that was kind of my message. We've done some great things, but we can build higher now because of the foundation we've laid. But now we need more hands on deck. We need more partnerships, more people involved.
Looking at some of the other things that were on the council agenda during the business portion of the meeting last night. Well, first things first, obviously, we've got to fill your council seat.
Yeah.
And the council chose to go the special election route as opposed to the appointment route. Maybe just talk about that.
The council decided, let the people vote. There was, Rugby sat at the podium and said, so a citizen was at the podium and said he wanted an appointment. And I think we would have looked at appointment if it was 6 months away, 8 months away. Let's just get it in, get it out. But we had 2 years left. The council mentioned at the podium last night, or the table. And so they want to give the citizens of Ward 1 the option. Now, there may be only 300 to 500 people voting it. It's really low turnout, those things. So it won't be a lot of people. But that's 500 people decided over 6. And so that's kind of the direction they went. It will cost us probably about $7,000 as a city, but in big scheme of things, to allow democracy to move forward, the council decided let's go for it. So if anybody in Ward 1, basically Ward 1 is the northeast corridor or quadrant of Mason City, east of Federal, north of Highway 120 up to Cabin Cough, and then goes up to State Street down to Federal. That's pretty much the district. If you live in Ward 1 and you're interested in helping out, get involved. That was my challenge last night. Go to courthouse and talk to Adam, or reach out to any councilman. Will help anybody get involved. Reach out to me. And I love to, get more people involved, but you're going to have about 30 days to get your petition in. You get the signatures. Right now, it's probably, I don't know, but probably 17 or 20 people outside here, but it's going to be a low number, and your name's going to be on the ballot. And then you got 20 some more days to get out there and canvass 1/4 of the city as best you can.
The council last night also approved a policy agenda for calendar years 2026 and 2027. And obviously that was after a kind of a goal setting session that the council had prior to the beginning of the year. We'll just go through the 3 things that were mentioned in that. Conduct a downtown assessment to evaluate beautification, bike and pedestrian friendliness, and other factors. And obviously you mentioned this in your speech as well. Downtown is definitely still an important thing to focus on and get that the way we want it.
It is something I just say, I told everybody this, I will never not be a fan of our downtown or working to improve it. It is the center of any community. I believe that. Now, I've heard people say we spend enough money down there, we should be looking at other places. We do. I will never turn away growth on the last night we looked at, expanding some housing potential down the southeast corner of Mason City. But our downtown has to be the heart and soul. And that was one of the things we pushed for last year as a city council. It was one of my personal goals. And I would like to see what we've worked on as a streetscape expanded to Washington and Delaware. Work on the blocks around it, make it more walkable, biker friendly, and just start to grow the downtown and into those neighborhoods. And that's why, Bill Sugar works so hard on the west side of downtown. We've seen 30 homes work on the improvement. We got Habitat Home working in down there. So it's just a constant effort. And I'm excited about that. I really am. I think that can kind of take that step a little further.
The one of the other things, create a mall revitalization plan that's financially sustainable. And of course, some things have been improved to the mall, but there's still a long ways to go on this subject.
It's a huge, long ways. There's one of those things of perspective. It's a real life scenario of is the glass half full or half empty. You can look at the mall, and I would have said that as 14 years ago as a city councilman. I said, why would we ever own a mall? That's ridiculous. It's dumb. And I know there are people saying it today, and that's fine. But we saw what 2 private owners did to that mall and just let it fall apart. Businesses left. We have a $2 million roof that we got to figure out. We figure out over half of it. We've got a new roof on over half of it, but we've got more to do. But it is also a potential great asset for this community. And that that's the only option we have, I feel, and that's to make it better and better. But we got to have a vision for it. And to me, the vision really has to be activity and economic, like I said, social and economic opportunities here. How do we get people to use that as an activity where people go, gather, look at each other, get a cup of coffee, get some food, get a drink, whatever it is. Let's use that as a place to look around the town and say, oh, we do have a community here. Look around and bring that pride back to Mason City.
And the other part of the policy was develop an owner-occupied housing incentive program, which I know Councilman Latham, I'm sure, likes to hear that one on the policy agenda. And obviously, that's something there's been a lot of focus on the multi dwellings like we've seen in the downtown area, but housing owner-occupied, that's been something that just hasn't gotten off the ground.
It hasn't, and it's nationwide. It really is an epidemic nationwide, but we got to sweep our own corners. And so it's the nation's facing it. So what do we do? And let's get creative. And that's one thing I think City Administrator Aaron Burnett and our staff have been really good at, is looking for grants, looking for creativity, looking at things from different perspectives. And that's what we're going to have to do. But we do need more home owner-occupied family. We're doing really well on apartments and those kind of condo units. We still got some more rooms of space, right. But the state of Iowa even says we're about 30,000 homes short as a state, I think is yeah. If I remember it. So we got to just, even though we might be shrinking, you build homes where people move up and then become affordable. So yeah, we might build $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 homes because no homes. You're not going to build a home in today's world for $150,000. But can you move the people who do own homes at $150,000 up to $400,000, and then those $150,000 homes, the people in $70,000 and $80,000 homes move up, and then now you have affordability for the other vulnerable community that we've talked about last night. So it may look from the south side we're trying to build nice homes for those, but it's just how it works.
One other thing that the council talked about or acted on last night, setting the big process for improvements to the city's water reclamation facility. Obviously, it's going to be a big price tag situation, but it has to be done.
It has to be done. Literally by law, by code, by the federal government, it has to be done. And it's going to be a $37 million project. And we can all swallow hard and say, how are we going to do it? We have no choice. It's what I teach in my classes, unfunded mandate. But every single city in the Mississippi River Basin has to do this. We all, and people have been working on it. Our bill, by the way, no names, but there are smaller towns than us, a lot of smaller towns that have $60, $70 million bills, because we've done a good job of keeping up on our filters since 2008 and 1996, whatever it was mentioned last night. We've done 2 major upgrades that allows us to keep it down. There is a small town not too far from us who is facing a $70 million bill. I have no idea how they do that.
Anything else you want to add from last night's meeting or in general before we let you go?
No, I'm just really excited to get to work. I already got a couple of emails about people who want to, have me come talk, because I guess my last pitch would be, if there's any group, any organizations out there who would like me to come and talk and say, we heard you. We want to get involved. How can we help with the city? I'm growing ideas, and it's not things I think we need. It's just ways that you can get involved. Find your passion. You don't have to follow through with us, but find something you think would help the city, and just realize, it's a lot of the pressure is going to fall on you. But that is how we move the city forward. And you will hear me talking about that for the next, I say 6 months, but it'd probably be a better part of 4 years.
All right. Well, Mayor, we got you through your first Ask the
It
Mayor
was
program.
fun. I appreciate it.
Well, hopefully it's fun enough that you come back in 2 weeks and we'll do it again.
Absolutely. Thanks,
all righty.
Bob.
Thank you very much. John Lee, the Mayor of Mason City, here on the Ask the Mayor program here on your hometown news station, AM 1300 KGLO.